Hello everyone, it's me, Maester Mike, and I'm back for my next Star Wars review. I've watched all the original George Lucas movies, the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, and now I'm moving on to the Disney movies. Really did not want to have to do that, but considering that the newest movie is coming out in just one day, I guess I have to count my blessings and just give in and watch these movies. Probably should have done them a while ago, but whatever. That's just how I roll. So after the event, first I'm going to talk about the movie itself because there's a lot to talk about with Disney's take on Star Wars. After George Lucas finished the prequel trilogy, he had been talking for years about making sequels to the Return of the Jedi. Kind of hard to say. For years he has had ideas for episodes 7, 8, and 9, but nothing has really been concrete. I've always heard a lot of conflicting ideas for him and what he wanted to do after the events of episode 6, but nothing ever came to it. It just, after episode 3 came out in 2005, nothing really happened much except we still got plenty of books, comic books, video games, and of course the Clone Wars TV show starting in 2008. But then something happened in 2012. George Lucas went to Disney and he sold them the rights to Star Wars for $4 billion. I don't know if Lucas went to Disney himself or Disney went to Lucas. I'm not sure who approached him for that deal, but yeah, it was quite a bombshell. Pretty much as big of a bombshell after Disney had bought Marvel only just a few years prior. So, my take on that, back then, I feel like a lot of people were mixed on this. A lot of people were very optimistic that Disney could do something right, and why shouldn't they? It's Disney. Disney is like the biggest name in entertainment today, and of course they have had some of the best writers and screenwriters and people who work for them. So yeah, people were looking forward to this. But me, I don't know. I was cautiously optimistic because, sure, you can say whatever you want about George Lucas and how he handled the prequels, but at the end of the day, the Star Wars series is his creation, and having him be removed from his own creation was kind of a red flag. I wasn't sure how to take this, and I was, for years before The Force Awakens came out, I was kind of expecting Disney to just make course corrections for how the prequels were handled, and I was not looking forward to that because I love the prequels. I still have a lot of fun with them, and if they wanted to just like retcon those from existence, that would have just made me really upset. But there were still plenty of reasons to be optimistic about this movie at first. But then things started to happen. About in between once Lucas gave up Lucasfilm and Star Wars to Disney. They made a lot of bad steps before these new movies came out. Like in the years between the acquisition and the first movie being released, Disney had canceled the Clone Wars TV show before it was finished. They had canceled the Clone Wars TV show. They had stopped LucasArts, the video game division of Lucasfilm, from making any games. So any games that looked promising like that, like the very well hyped Star Wars 1313, which was focused on Boba Fett, I believe, a very Uncharted-like Star Wars game that focuses on Boba Fett's journey. That was completely scrapped. And probably the most infamous thing that they did, the third most infamous thing they did, was they completely scrapped the plate clean of the entire extended universe. So anything that that you've read of the Era of the Empire thing, with Empire trilogy, the Yuuzhan Vong conflict, any characters that you've grown to love, like Mara Jade or Admiral Thrawn. I don't know his complete title. I've never read any of the stories, and especially the Knights of the Old Republic. Gone. All of that was gone because Disney was gonna make their own things and try to make their new canon. That they would make things better. I never had any stake in the extended universe, but I definitely see now why that's a big problem, because there were so many good stories that kept Star Wars alive in between the movies, and to just completely get rid of all of it is not a good idea. Just a lot of love went into those stories, and to get rid of them all is big mistake. But hey, those were not based on the movies. For me personally, I think the movies is where Star Wars is at, and the main attraction for this whole franchise, because that's where it started and that's where it should mainly be. Oh yeah, also I was having a problem with how Disney was marketing this, because they were going to have a movie released every single year since 2015. They had the new sequel trilogies, episodes 7, 8, and 9. Then they had spin-offs in between those, such as Rogue One and Solo, and they were going to have a Boba Fett movie and possibly a Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, but those were scrapped. But yeah, we all know what's happened with Disney and Star Wars right now, and they've been just completely screwing up so badly. But I think I want to I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm going to talk about just The Force Awakens and what I think about this. So, in my takes, because this is what these videos are for, and that's what I'm doing. So the new movie that they released in 2015, just 4 years ago, was called The Force Awakens. This takes place 30 years after the events of the original trilogy. 30 years, Luke has gone missing, and now this new organization known as the First Order has risen from the ashes of the Empire. They've built this planet killer known as Star Killer Base, and they're planning to use it against the rebellion. The Resistance. And the movie starts out on this one desert planet where a member of the Resistance, a pilot named Poe Dameron, has gotten the plans. Not the plans. Sorry. He's given a secret portion of the map to where Luke Skywalker is. But stormtroopers from the First Order have come to massacre this entire village, kidnap him, but he sends his droid out to escape from the First Order, and gets involved in this one girl named Rey, who's just this one scavenger who lives on this planet alone and who's just waiting for her family, but she gets swept up into this bitter conflict between the Resistance and the First Order. And meanwhile, in the First Order, there's a stormtrooper who goes rogue. He doesn't agree with. He's on his first squad mission, and he does not like the killing of innocents, and he turns away from the First Order. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm doing that. I really shouldn't explain the storyline, because you want to know why? Because this movie is essentially a complete carbon copy of A New Hope. Oh boy. That was my biggest fear going into this movie back in 2015. I had heard rumors for weeks. I did not follow much of any of the leaks or rumors before coming out. I know that they were there, but I never followed any of those. I just watched the trailers and just was mildly interested in what they had to offer, but I was hearing rumors that this movie was going to be just a complete remake of the original movie, and I was hoping to God that wouldn't be the case, and sure enough, it is. It's basically what The Force Awakens is. This movie wanted to bring back a new generation of fans by just telling the original story of the original movie all over again. And that sucks. That just really sucks, because I hated that. I'm not going to be very positive with these movies, I don't think, because it just feels like this movie. First off, it's very uninspired that this movie has all the same beats and story arcs and story archetypes that the original movie had. There's an empire, which is now the First Order. There's a rebellion, which is now known as the Resistance. There's a young person that lives on a desert planet. It's not Tatooine. It's called Jakku. There's this girl named Rey, she's not a moisture farmer, but she's a scavenger for parts of, which I will say it does look cool seeing all the ruins of Empire and Rebellion vehicles and weapons that crash landed on this planet years ago while the war was ending. That is a cool feature, but we have a person that lives on a desert planet and that's dreaming, or not really, whatever, she's dreaming of a better life. There's a droid that has components that has a very dangerous. It has something that the First Order wants that could help them turn the tide in the war. There's a planet killer, but this time it doesn't. It can kill multiple planets as opposed to just one at a time. So not only is this movie very just so by the numbers and so predictable, it also makes the events of the original movie feel very pointless. Because it doesn't feel like this universe has really evolved. It feels like it's just stuck in the same timeline, even though this is several decades after the Return of the Jedi. I hear it's like 30 years after, but it really doesn't feel like that. They have all the same vehicles, they have all the same mechanics and all the same technology. And just look at how different the prequels were from the originals. Like everything looks so different in just those short decades, but this one just doesn't. Just feels like everything was not, nothing really was achieved because it's all back to the same conflict that we all know from the originals. But yeah, other things that it has is there's this new Sith Lord. He's not really a Sith. I don't think they really say it, but yeah, there's this new Dark Lord who's supposed to be Darth Vader 2.0, and he's got his own secret and shadowy master. He's not Emperor Palpatine. He's Supreme Leader Snoke. So it's different. No, it's not. I'm trying to think of things to be positive. I don't mean to be negative, but the movie is... I don't want to say the movie is completely awful, but I think it's fine, but that's just the thing. It's fine, and that's something that Star Wars just really shouldn't be. Star Wars is such a life-changing experience. Say what you will about... You can like it or dislike it all you want, but for so many... There's such a reason why this movie changed so many lives. It offered such imagination, such new visuals that no one had ever seen in big screen done in such a way before, and this movie's just copying all the things. I'm trying to think of some things that I do like. I do think the acting for the characters, I do think they are handled better in this movie than any of the prequels were handled. I do think that the characters do work well with what they're given, but the action I think is fine, although it's nothing we haven't really seen too much before. Although the visuals, I will say, the visuals definitely stand out. And although I was never one to complain against the CGI, the overuse of that in the prequels, it definitely does look nice in this, how there's a lot more on-set filming and more practical effects. It does feel very nice in that aspect, but yeah, that honestly, there's not too much I can really think about. Like, the characters are pretty... There's a lot of bad things. Like, I got notes here. Let me say, I've already said that I was never a fan of this movie just completely retelling the original story. But there's some things that they do sort of new. Like, there's this character named Finn who's a stormtrooper who turns against the First Order after the beginning events of the film, where they massacre this whole village to look for the map to Luke Skywalker, but they really botch his character. Like, he's this guy who's been trained to be a stormtrooper all his life, and his character development is interesting to some extent, but he turns against it. He has no problem gunning down what should be former squad mates that he's known all his whole life, and he has no real problem fighting against them, which that should be, even though he doesn't agree with the First Order anymore, he really shouldn't be just mercilessly slaughtering all these stormtroopers. Like, some of these people are people he's known and he should be friends with. Like, that should bring in such conflict, but it doesn't. Especially during this one battle halfway through the movie where he's fighting this one stormtrooper this stormtrooper in riot gear. Like, the guy calls him a traitor. He shouts that out, but he doesn't. But Finn has no emotional attachment to that guy. Then there's this character, Rey, who's... I really like to be positive about certain things. I try to be optimistic and more positive to certain things. I don't want to judge things right away because this is the first movie of a trilogy and there's room for improvement, but yeah, there's this new girl named Rey who, as we learn throughout the events of the movie, she becomes the next Jedi, even though it's not really foreshadowed at all in the entire movie. And she is very... I feel like Daisy Ridley, the actor who plays her, does a good job with what she's given, but I think she comes off as pretty entertaining, but she's a Mary Sue. Yeah, she's just a Mary Sue. She's always on top of things. She's always very smart and intelligent. She's very capable. And you can tell that there's a political message behind that. This is obviously just Hollywood trying to push the feminist agenda. Like, she's attacked by these two crooks in this one town of Jakku that she frequents. And Finn tries to save her, but she beats them back. She doesn't need anyone's help. She's perfectly capable of doing things herself, which I'm sure she's capable of fighting, but she was ganged up by two guys. She should have had some help. It just makes it seem very... If they wanted to make Finn and Rey have a connection with each other, he should have helped her in some way, but nope, doesn't do that. Then there's also the fact that she somehow knows how to pilot the Millennium Falcon, even though I think it's implied that she has worked on it before in the past, but the fact that she's able to fly it so well, and no crashes, no injuries, no nothing, she knows it better than Han Solo, yeah, I'm sure she does. And then she gets kidnapped halfway through the movie by the new villain Kylo Ren, and she frees herself. She just suddenly learns how to become a Jedi, and she just, a scene that I do think is kind of funny, but it's also, she just suddenly learns how to do a Jedi mind trick on a random stormtrooper, and she saves herself. She doesn't need any man. She doesn't need a man's help. She's a strong, independent woman. Don't you forget that. Don't you forget it. And then in the final climactic duel, she just overpowers the main villain and just like completely kicks his ass and doesn't come off scathed in any way. How completely stupid. Then there's the main villain Kylo Ren, who is basically Darth Vader 2.0. This is something I didn't mention. I'm not very fond of how they try to recreate the iconic opening of the reveal of the Empire in A New Hope, but it's not done as well. When they come out of the ship, it doesn't look as impressive as when Darth Vader enters through that one door. It's all shrouded in smoke and fog or steam, whatever it is. It's all shrouded in smoke, and you see all these stormtroopers in white, and then you see this man that towers above them, dressed in complete black, and the music swells at that point just to show that he's the villain. That, like, you're immediately intimidated by Darth Vader. And Kylo Ren, not so much on his first appearance. I feel like he's okay for for certain parts of the movie, but they botch his character too. Like, they reveal, like, in this movie that he's the son of Han Solo and Princess Leia, and that he turned to the dark side by this man known as Supreme Leader Snoke. I feel like they wasted that revelation. Like, imagine if in the original Star Wars they revealed that Darth Vader was Luke's father then. That wouldn't have been as impressive as it was in the Empire Strikes Back. I feel like they wasted that opportunity. But then his personality, he does seem confident in certain places, but then he comes off as a temperamental child. Like, when he's told that the droid BB-8 escapes, he just starts destroy. He uses his crossguard lightsaber, which admittedly looks cool, but I don't know. I don't really have any qualms about that. I'm not too much of a big Star Wars nerd, but yeah, he just destroys this machinery and just like he's throwing a temper tantrum. And when Rey escapes, he throws another tantrum. And I don't have any problems with Adam Driver. I don't know him too much I haven't seen many movies with him in it, but he does not look very intimidating when he takes off his helmet. Like, he should have been more scarred or given some sort of makeup to make him look more weak and frail, or I don't know. He's not. That's another thing that they wasted. He should not. I agree with the geeks and gamers. Like, he should not have taken off his helmet. Imagine if Darth Vader had taken off his helmet and you saw his face all the time. That's just a wasted opportunity. They waited until the very end of the original trilogy to do that, because that way it feels like he's been freed from his image of Darth Vader. And for this guy who's been apparently training in the Jedi arts to be trounced by someone who's never held a lightsaber and never believed in the Force until like one day ago, just stupid. Other characters, BB-8, I think he's a fine droid, but I always thought his design looks very improbable, how he's just this like beach ball type thing. Like, I feel like he'd always be falling over. I never saw how that would be a very practical droid design. Poe, I don't really care too much about Poe. Most of these characters just don't really do anything for me. They're not very interesting. I really feel like they should have gone more creative with some of the characters. Like, they should have had some more alien characters. That's something I've always had a problem with Star Wars. Most of the alien characters just feel like background elements, and this story is mostly told by humans. Sure, they've had aliens in the past, like we had Chewbacca, but he's mostly just kind of like just an animal. You can't understand how he talks. You don't understand what he's saying, but only certain characters do. He's just kind of like a dumb animal. And then there's, of course, Jar Jar Binks, which we probably don't want another character to be like Jar Jar Binks. But just think about how, like, something like, say, Mass Effect handled their aliens, at least in their original trilogy. Like, I love the alien. I love all the characters in Mass Effect. Like, they have such variety to them that you really feel like there's this whole universe to explore with these unique characters and their unique backstories and their histories. That's something about there's something with the movies of Star Wars that they never did well. But yeah, these characters just don't really do it very well, and then they bring back old returning characters. Oh yeah, I forgot about there's this general that works as an underling of Kylo named General Hux. I think he's fine. He seems like a decent enough adversary for the Empire, but then he seems like a good enough adversary for the Resistance, and like he's very competent, it seems. But then he has that speech where he's saying that where they fire off the first blast of the Star Killer base, and he's chewing the scenery really stupidly. It feels it's very hammy and cheesy. Like, you could tell they're obviously making Nazi references. Like, just give him a stupid Hitler mustache. That's what they're trying to do, obviously. It's so paper thin. Man, this video is going on longer than I thought it would. It just goes to show how much I have to say about this. And then there's the returning characters. Like they bring back Han Solo and Chewbacca, and although he become an accomplished general, or was he a general in the original trilogy? Well, he was an accomplished. He went from a smuggler and he became this accomplished rebel leader. Like he has respect. He has all this. He should have so much. I'm trying to find the right words. He should have so much more authority and more control. But now he's just back to a smuggler. They just completely destroy all his development that they have in the original trilogy, and that's completely bullshit. Like, there's no reason for it. It's like the director of this movie, J.J. Abrams, just wanted to make you remember all the good times you had with the original trilogy, but they don't honor what the characters were before. Like, the only one who actually feels like kind of had some sort of growth was Princess Leia, who's now the general of this resistance, but, well, she really shouldn't be a general. She should be a leader of the Republic. That's another thing that's... Yeah, they ruin Han Solo and kind of Princess Leia, but although she's a general, she's accomplished. She's a strong woman. You don't forget that. But they just don't honor the characters. Like, even the droids, like R2's off in the background. You don't see him until you only see him once before the very end when he reactivates. But aside from the characters, there's just a lot of plot threads about this universe that doesn't make sense. There's a lot of questions and answers that you have that they raise and they don't make any sense. Like, there's a lot of plot holes in this movie. Like, when Finn escapes with Poe, like, he tries to escape from the First Order, Poe just vanishes, just disappears all of a sudden, and we don't see what happens to him until he gets back with the Resistance. Like, how did he get there? I don't know. He just managed to escape. He's all fine. No one ever came after him again. He's just fine. Then they bring up C-3PO. He suddenly has his left arm is suddenly red. Why does he have a red arm? I don't know. Read the supplementary books. We'll explain things there. Then there's, of course, another thing that they don't explain. Like, why is there like some sort of small rebel organization for the Republic? Shouldn't the Republic be the one that be fighting against the First Order? Why do they have this one secret covert operation? Like, why are they... Like, they do work for the New Republic, but why isn't it just the New Republic? That doesn't make any sense that they have this small rebellion that's almost like it's working undercover. Like, that just makes... They say that the Republic has already become corrupt again, and like just in a few decades. And leading up to the prequels, it took them centuries, millennia even, for the Republic to fall. And now it's just only a few decades, so like that completely mines the achievements made in the original trilogy. And there's the First Order. They're not the Empire, but they're rise from the Empire, but they're not actually the Empire. Like, how did these people rise? How did these people come out of the ashes and no one noticed it? Like, they built a freaking Death Star into a planet. It's not a space station. It's this entire planet now, and it can destroy like 5 planets at once, and no one noticed this. Man, really stupid Republic. Oh yeah, and one of the biggest questions: there's this one alien that Han is friends with named Maz Kanata, and she apparently has Luke's original that didn't make any sense. Luke's original lightsaber, which was Anakin's lightsaber. You know, the one that Luke lost during his battle with Darth Vader in Bespin, when he got his hand cut off. Like, Han raises up the question, how did you find that? And she says, that's another question for another time. Which we know to mean that we'll never tell because we don't have any answers. Ha ha, middle finger. Ha ha, you're never going to get any answers. I don't really want to flip off. Don't really want to use the middle finger, but you know, we say that she somehow has Luke's lightsaber and we don't get any answers for it. So many questions. Wow, this movie doesn't really hold up when you really think about it. And then there's also very huge missed opportunities. Like, there's this character named Captain Phasma. Yeah, she's this female stormtrooper. She's got chrome armor. She's got a cool cape. You'd think that she'd be something important in this film, but she's only in like 3 scenes and doesn't do anything. She just scolds Finn for taking off his helmet. And then she gets captured by Finn and Han when they're trying to save Rey. They get her to lower the shields, and then they throw her in a trash compactor, and we never see her again. She's the new Boba Fett. What's even the point of her? They marketed this character, and they don't even use her. And other things. Let's see. Oh yeah, here's a thing that I would have liked to see. You know, the character Maz Kanata, she's obviously trying to be this movie's Yoda. Like, all these characters are trying to be like the new Luke, the new Han, the new Princess Leia, the new Darth Vader, everything. Like, there's this character named Maz, who's essentially the new Yoda. You know what I would have liked to see? The way they were kind of building her up, like how Han tells them, like, not to make fun of her appearance. I don't know if I'm the only one who thought this, but was anyone thinking that she would have been a Hutt? That would have been a really funny, ironic moment, because Han's greatest enemy, like, he used to work for Jabba the Hutt, who, after he failed to pay him off, he became his greatest enemy. And then it would be funny, I think, if he had made an ally with another Hutt. Like, it would be kind of a weird twist of fate that just would have been more interesting than what Maz was. She's just this squat alien with these really big goggles that she expands her eyes. Other things that I'm not very fond of, I feel like some of the humor, I feel like I did feel like some of the jokes were funny, like better made than they were in the prequels. But on the other hand, a lot of the humor in this movie kind of feels off. It doesn't feel like the kind of stuff that George Lucas would have done. It feels very Marvel-esque, if you will, or like Joss Whedon in a way, like quips and like out-of-place quips and dialogue, like when Poe's first captured by Kylo Ren, he's just quipping and making fun of his appearance, and like he's not taking things seriously, and it just feels out of place. Oh, and one of my biggest problems with this movie is, unfortunately, John Williams' score. John Williams' score in this movie is so forgettable. How do you do that? John Williams made Star Wars so much more endearing with his soundtrack. Like, every single movie up until this one has such memorable songs and such memorable music that you can think of all the time, like the Star Wars theme, of course, the Imperial March, the song when Luke is looking against the twin suns. I don't know many of the names of the songs, but so you just have to bear with me. And then there's other songs, like there's the Ewok Village. I like the Ewok Village music. I like Yoda's theme. I like the Emperor's theme, Jabba's theme. Of course, say what you will about the prequels, but you cannot deny that they had amazing music, such as when the Trade Federation's invading Naboo. There's the Duel of the Fates, of course. There's the Attack of the Clones romance theme. Say what you will about the romance, but I like that song. There's the chase through Coruscant. There's the Camino theme. I like that one too. And then in Revenge of the Sith, it has the Battle of the Heroes when Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting. That song is so good, and this movie has nothing. I don't remember anything when... The only songs that I remember is when they're just songs that they're remixing from the original movies, and there's nothing memorable. Oh man, there's a lot of problems with this. Yeah, I really don't want to get negative, but there's just so many problems with this movie. Holy crap. This movie should have been so good, but it just failed, and honestly, it angered me. It really pissed me off that so many people just bought into this. They were just so ready to eat up new Star Wars, and they were so ready to just forget about the prequels. Like, people were shilling for so hard back in the day. I remember, like, the prequel hate just wouldn't die down anytime soon. I remember when Honest Trailers made one video for before the movie came out, and they were like saying, "Oh, this will save the Star Wars universe." It didn't need saving at all. Say what you will about the prequels, but Star Wars did not lose any popularity because when those movies came out, they still had plenty of supplementary material to entertain you people. They were like saying, "Oh, this is gonna save it. This is gonna save it," and everyone's like, so many critics were saying this is one of the best movies of the year. And they're like, I don't want to name names, but like people like Jeremy Johns and Chris Stuckman, and we're so ecstatic for this movie. They were naming it their favorite movies of the year, and this movie became one of the highest grossing films of all time. It broke so many records, and it just retold the original movie in such a weaker way. That's not what I want to go to see Star Wars for. One of my most hated arguments that people make for this movie is that, oh, we want to bring in a new audience, so we have to bring in a new audience, or no, we needed to play something safe because of the way the prequels were. The prequels were messy, so we just had to play it safe. Who goes to movies or anything to play things safe? You want to be entertained. You want to be blown away. No one went into Star Wars to just have a safe movie. Star Wars blew so many people away, and for the fact that so many people I've seen and heard use the argument that this is a good way of bringing people into the Star Wars by just retelling the original story is so stupid. Because if you want to tell people, if you want to get your kids or anyone else into Star Wars, here's an idea. Instead of watching The Force Awakens, why don't you just watch this movie? This is the original movie. It has so much more heart and soul. Sure, this is one of the special editions, and they made